Doom Eternal is the 7th instalment in the series, and boy does it deliver on the carnage. Today I'll be looking at the game for a special reason. I purchased it for an absurdly low price of just 17 British pence. How could I possibly refuse buying it for such a low price? I'll be going back into the history of the franchise and the development of this recent AAA title and discovering what unique and incredible value for money this truly is, so stick around and I can show you how to pick up such a bargain. Doom Eternal is a bloodthirsty first-person shooter game developed by ID Software and published by Bethesda Softworks in March 2020. The game is the direct sequel to the 2016 reboot of the Doom series and follows the Doom Slayer as he continues his mission to stop the demonic forces from hell from turning our little blue planet into their own personal barbecue. Since the 2016 reboot, however, his mission has gotten much harder. Set 14 years after the events of the reboot, Earth has now in fact been overrun by hell demons, thanks to the meddling greedy capitalists, and the majority of the Earth's population has now been annihilated or has fled the planet entirely. With humanity's last stand on the line, it's up to Doom Guy to save what remains of Earth. The game offers fast-paced single-player action with intense combat and gore. It primarily focuses on a single-player 13-mission campaign mode, emphasising storytelling over multiplayer or competitive online esports. It can do this, but it's quite limited, as I'll discuss later. As Doom Guy, you get a wide range of weapons to play with to violently destroy all of the demonic forces that stand between you and your ultimate victory, whilst also having to manage your health, ammo, armour levels, and more importantly, chainsaw fuel. The game maintains the aggressive combat style of the Doom franchise, featuring brutal finishing moves and intense combat sequences. The game also features stunning graphics from the ID Tech 7 game engine and immersive soundtracks composed by Mick Gordon, further enhancing the player's experience of being the powerhouse demon slayer in a hellish and apocalyptic landscape. Some of the weapons available in the game include a chainsaw, shotgun and a flamethrower, as well as the infamous BFG 9000, and boy what a weapon that is. Overall, the game received positive reviews from across the industry and was well liked by the audience. It was a big hit for the studio and has generated well in excess of $450 million since its release back in 2020. Doom Eternal has also had 2 expansion packs released since, with The Ancient Gods Parts 1 and 2 adding new gameplay elements, lore and challenges to the already extensive game. Both expansions garnered positive reception from both fans and critics alike. So to summarise Doom Eternal, it's an excellent AAA game that is built successfully on 2016's Doom, rebooting the franchise and taking it to new heights with its fast-paced gameplay, brutal combat and stunning visuals. Doom Eternal was released into a very lucrative but highly competitive market in 2020, and it faced stiff opposition from other well-established franchises. At the time, Call of Duty was the big hitter in the market, earning almost $1 billion by the time Doom Eternal was even released. Call of Duty was also scooping up a host of awards, mainly for its esports playability and its incredible use of sound, and it was being nominated for almost every other award going. Another massive FPS game was, and still is, Apex Legends, which has been a mega blockbuster for Electronic Arts. It followed in the footsteps of Fortnite by being a free-to-play game for anyone wishing to join in, but being stacked with opportunities to purchase massive amounts of in-game content. Apex Legends itself has today exceeded the $2 billion bracket and is still going strong. Call of Duty would focus on a modern, real-world immersive experience and its online esports competitive playability. Apex Legends mostly aimed at its own online replayability and its fantastical customization. Doom Eternal, however, would mostly be single-player campaigns and story-driven. Its multiplayer is called Battle Mode, and it's a bit of a different take on the modern, typical multiplayer platform. It's very enjoyable despite being very limiting. You control one of 2 demon overlords, and between you have to use a new array of skills and demon summoning abilities to defeat Doom Guy, whilst always being aware that any demons you throw up into his path may just be helping powering him up further. The emphasis on maintaining Doom Eternal as a single player game has likely restricted its overall potential in terms of attracting a wider audience who prefer multiplayer experiences. I'm certainly not saying it's damaged it, far from it, allowing the developers to double down using the ultra impressive game engine on world building and storytelling, but maybe it would have been more appealing to the gaming community as a whole for a multiplayer version of the demonic apocalyptic world where you could battle it out either as a selection of in-game characters or generate your own fully customizable demons and doom guys. I think ultimately the developers could see that the online multiplayer market was quite saturated at the time, with other games like Fortnite and Overwatch still going strong, and the Doom Eternal game itself being the very impressive and technically demanding game that it is, would probably restrict the number of players who could play it. Number 2, the Doom franchise. Let's take a quick look back at the original Doom game, the development studio and the franchise as a whole. ID Software has now become a legendary name in the gaming world. It was established on February the 1st, 1991 by John and Adrian Carmack, John Romero and Tom Hall, who all worked together at the now defunct Soft Disk company. Founded in Shreveport, Louisiana, the company quickly made a name for itself through its pioneering technological innovations and iconic games. But first they had to fulfill a few contractual obligations before the split from Soft Disk, churning out titles that we've all heard of, such as Rescue Rover, Hover Tank 3D and Commander Keen in Keen Dreams. Yep, those big hitters. However, once full-time, ID Software wasted no time in becoming awesome and developed the 1992 Wolfenstein 3D game that set the studio on an immediate upward trajectory. This game is often credited as being the first modern first-person shooter game and was based on the mid-80s video game Castle Wolfenstein, which the developers had all previously enjoyed playing. The game was a hit and started to rake in a couple of $100,000 per month shortly after its release. Almost immediately, in 1993, the developers brought to life a very different kind of FPS game that their somewhat warped and genius minds could create, the first Doom game. ID Software were clearly in a hurry to become absolute legends, and were still working on the Wolfenstein 3D game whilst developing a new engine to use for the upcoming Doom game. Doom was released in 1993, both in a physical form and using an innovative shareware platform, a little bit like today where you can download the game, except it was onto your old dial-up PC. The game was a massive hit, with around 5 million copies being sold over the following years, and the 90s became a time of mass slaughtering of demons. While everyone else was busy doing that, the studio would develop the game's sequel, Doom 2 Hell on Earth, and release it in 1994. The sequel didn't focus on major software improvements, but instead looked to build upon what they had already achieved with the impressive game engine and refined and expand on the gameplay experience. They certainly took the right course of action, and the game, with its 3 expansion packs, would ultimately generate around $100 million of revenue over its lifespan, selling millions of copies around the world and firmly establishing ID Software as leading experts in the FPS genre and a top studio in the gaming industry. The studio would also pump out the Quake series, which debuted in '96. Quake would initially be released on PC, but become available to games consoles in '97, hitting Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation and Nintendo 64 later on. Quake was overall very positively received and would go on to net the studio an estimated further 5 million sales. Doom 64, developed by Midway Studios with some assistance from ID Software, released in 1997. It hit the market and received further positive critical acclaim. It was generally thought to be the best looking Doom game so far, but overall an extension of what had already come before. It had pretty modest sales due to its limited console market position, but it actually gained massive fanbase over the years and even donned a remastered edition which was released in 2020. It would be a few years again before an official sequel to Doom 2, and in 2004 Doom 3 was finally released. The game, although the third in the franchise, was actually a reboot of the original game and ignored everything that had happened before. Despite having some flaws, it received very positive reviews from the critics, and the sales of the game would certainly back that up. The game sold well and would eventually top around 4 million in worldwide sales by the end of 2007. It was another great hit and would generate an estimated $50 million for the studio. In the following years, the fan base would be treated to the release of further books, comics and a film starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson and Carl Urban as they battled through an army of hell demons on a Martian research facility, culminating in The Rock turning heel. The film was generally met with negative reviews, dragging in around $60 million in the box office, while also netting around $30 million in video sales. Interestingly, The film has a bit of a cult following and is fondly remembered as being a bit of a fun interpretation of the games, and in 2019 the long-awaited and highly anticipated sequel Doom Annihilation was released, straight to home video. In 2009, ID Software was acquired by ZeniMax Media for an estimated $105 million. The true amount is unknown, however ZeniMax itself received an investment from Strongmail Systems around the time of the purchase for this amount. Coincidence? No, I don't think so. In 2013, both the studio's president, Tom Hollinshead, and John Carmack left. This would bring an end to the original team who founded the company. That brings us to the studio's reboot of the franchise, with 2016's highly successful Doom game. The game has been a smash hit for the studio, selling an estimated 7 to 9 million multi-platform copies to date and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The fanbase praised the studio for carefully rebooting the franchise, whilst adhering to the aggressive playstyle of the original game and featuring impressive graphics and gameplay. The studio would later release 3 expansion packs for the game, adding further depth to the lore, more maps, more characters and more weapons. It added further revenues and helped pave the way for where we are today with Doom Eternal. And for my final point on this brief history of the studio and the Doom franchise, things would not be complete without noting that ZeniMax Media was, of course, eaten up by Microsoft to the tune of around $7.5 billion, making ID Software part of Microsoft and its Xbox game studios. Doom Eternal is a AAA game, meaning the estimated development budget could be anywhere from $50 to $300 million. The game uses the ID Tech 7 engine, which would have incurred significant development costs. The studio has been developing in-house game engines for quite some time now and created further income by licensing the engines out to other studios to use in the development of their games. Needless to say, it's still a costly and time-consuming endeavour. It's estimated, for example, that the rival Unreal Engine or Unity engine has cost tens of millions of dollars to develop. The process of developing a AAA game of this nature takes years of hard work, from initial concept development, modelling, animating and texturing to programming, composing and extensive testing. Then there's the marketing and promoting and setting up support for the product after it's launched. It's an extensive, painstaking process that is managed now on a scale that the gaming industry has never seen before. An example of another game in the same bracket would be something like Cyberpunk 2077. This game development costing somewhere in the region of $300 million. For me, playing the game was a blast from the off. Firstly, as a novice, I completed the tutorial mode, which was actually pretty fun. Afterwards, I went straight into the campaign mode. The opening cinematic is superb, and when the game does begin, the fast pace ensures you are constantly in the action. The detail and design of each and every level is top notch, and I love the numerous amounts of weapons and weapon mods you can use. There's plenty of button combinations to get used to, but not enough to overwhelm new players. When an opponent is critically wounded or stunned by an attack, for example, I quite enjoyed the brutal finishing manoeuvres you could perform from a variety of different situations. Most, if I'm honest, drew quite a smile from me. My particular go-to was the chainsaw attacks. I think it pretty much perfectly encapsulates Doomkai as a whole, cutting his way through the hordes. I can see where the care and attention and money have gone into this game. The graphics are stunning, the mechanics are superb, and the story of Doomkai in this game, and the franchise as a whole, is very simple and yet very immersive. Violently exterminating hordes of demons on my way to saving the universe shouldn't be this fun, but to be honest it is. I've never really found my way into the Doom franchise, to be honest, until now. I've always been more into the Halo first-person shooter games, and I've probably just overlooked it. If you haven't yet played both, they are two very different styles of FPS gameplay. Both are objective based. Halo lets you move around the levels more and feels more open world like. It's what I would say feels a more realistic pace and has a real life feel to the combat mechanics. Doom, on the other hand, pushes the player more down a tunnel of gameplay, with everything coming at you thick and fast, not really giving you time to think and totally relying on your gameplay skills. I also took the time to look through some of the game's extensive modding options through the website Nexus Mods. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds of modifications to the game that the dedicated community has made to change the gaming experience. Everything you can imagine, from subtle changes to graphic reshading, new player and new weapon skins, new weapons and improved sound effects, to new game modes entirely, like the Horde mode, and fully reworked and custom made campaigns. I certainly think if you're looking to get even more from this game, you should absolutely be looking to mod it in some way. I've purchased this game for a mere 17p from the website Kinguin, a website where I've got some truly fantastic deals. No, I'm not in any way, shape or form sponsored by them, but I have got some great games from there and I'll be reviewing them in the future. Usually most people gravitate towards purchasing games through the Steam platform, which I also do. However, I thought I would take a punt and purchase a Microsoft Store version. I hadn't used this before, but I thought, what the hell. It was easy enough. You download the Xbox app onto your PC, sign up, go to settings and click on redeem code, and that's it. It's shown in your library, just like Steam, as being owned, and I can download it whenever I like. There are loads of deals out there for use on Xbox app as well as Steam, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye out. I found it by what's known in the social media world, ironically, as doom scrolling. It's something you do when you're actually bored and needing continuous dopamine hits. You just mindlessly flick through pages and pages of random discounted games, and then voila, Doom Eternal appears. I can't possibly give this game any negative feedback at this point. I may not be a professional reviewer, but I deeply value games and the effort put into creating them. For the modest sum of 17p, I acquired a AAA blockbuster crafted by a team of dedicated and skilled individuals. I'll be dedicating countless hours to vanquishing the damned, all thanks to their commitment to the game's lore and the enduring legacy established by ID Software. Finally, I will say that I'm looking forward to seeing how the next game in the series, the highly anticipated Doom the Dark Ages, performs relative to its predecessors and other FPS titles awaiting release. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel and feel free to leave a comment and any feedback and thoughts you have about the Doom series or Doom Eternal. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.